What's good, people? It's your boy, Coach Ace, coming at you with another episode of In the Classroom. That's right, this is Psychoschematics production. And in this episode, we're getting back to the defensive side of the ball. This episode will be talking about the differences between 4-3 defensive alignment and 3-4 defensive alignment. Now, with 4-3, it's 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. With 3-4, it's 3 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers. Now, the reason that defensive coordinators utilize different personnel is really all dependent on the style of defense they use. If they want the defense to be more confusing, have more shifting alignment, shifting movement, then they typically use a 3-4. Plus, with 3-4, they think, they said, most of the defensive coordinators believe that it's more confusing and that you have more athleticism with the linebackers. And then 4-3 is essentially used because it provides more stout defenders to stop the running game. Because, as you know, the stout defender means they're stockier, they're heavier, more massive. Well, so obviously referring to, the defensive lineman. But with this, I'll really show you the differences and the concepts and how defensive coordinators utilize it and how you can make 4-3 and 3-4 seem similar to each other. Boom, let's get it. Okay, first I'm going to draw out a 3-4 alignment. You'll have your Sam linebacker, inside linebacker, middle, weak side linebacker. Now, with this play, as you can see, 4 linebackers within this play. And like I said before, 3-4 is more predicated on athleticism and unique shifting and unique coverage concepts with the linebackers. And with this play, with this formation, it still has defensive ends, but they don't play the 7 or 8 or 9 gap. They play, they play the 5 gap and the 6 gap, more along those lines. And then the nose tackle plays right over the center of the 0. So I'll show that too. The ends play more of a 5 gap, and then the nose plays right over the 0. That's more of a 3-4 alignment. Now, with 4-3, and like I said before, 3-4 is more predicated on confusion and pass defense. Now, 4-3, you have defensive ends, defensive tackles. A strong side linebacker, a middle, and a weak side. And because of the fact that there's 2 defensive tackles, this scheme is more predicated, or I should say, this formation is more predicated on stopping the run game because defensive tackles are more stout, they're heavier, and they're harder to push downfield because they're heavier and, like I said, more stout. So now that I've shown that, I can kind of show you how it's utilized and how the players' talents are utilized. Now, like I said before, even though there's differences within the athleticism and the skill and the technique and the general speed and play style of players within a 4-3 or a 3-4, they can be used very similar to each other. What I mean by that is, if you tell the defensive line to stand up before they even pass rush, if you don't tell them to have their hand down on the ground, line of scrimmage, the whole line won't really exactly know who's coming at the same time. It'll just be a look with basically the same type of players within the formation. They still won't exactly know who's rushing, who's blitzing, or who's going to be dropping back in coverage. So you can make 4-3 and 3-4 look very similar to each other. The only difference will be the type of players, the player types that will be within the play. So there's a bit of a misconception about how 4-3 and 3-4 differ from each other. In reality, if a defensive coordinator is intelligent, he could teach all of his linemen and linebackers 3-4, 4-3 concepts, and then just adjust and shift in the play, in the game, so that the offensive line and the quarterback won't exactly know how to read their keys. Now, if I was a defensive coordinator, I'd absolutely teach all of my players 4-3 and 3-4 concepts, because that's the right way to do it. But some coaches are very strictly disciplined on the type of scheme they run, and they want to do things their way. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying there's a lack of versatility that comes with that. Sometimes all it really comes down to is a simple technique adjustment, a look, the player standing up and understanding how to rush from a standing up angle versus a player knowing how to rush with their hands down in the dirt. And then teaching players, like more particularly the defensive tackles and the defensive ends, how to cover in zone coverage. Because that's part of why coaches use 3-4, because the linebackers are more athletic and they drop into coverage more often in order to trick the offensive lineman and the quarterback. But you can teach defensive linemen how to drop into coverage, in the zone coverage. It's not that complex. Just teach them the right technique. Teach them how to drop back, how to survey the field, how to read the quarterback's eyes. They're more than capable of running those plays. But like I said before, it really depends on the defensive coordinator that's running the team's defense. And there you go. Differences between 4-3 and 3-4. Boom.